Hey guys, in this 3DVista tutorial I'm going to explain you how to make submenus, like a menu with submenus, with sub-submenus, sub-sub-sub-sub-submenus in 3DVista in the skin. So let's get into this. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a container. And basically there's a few things you gotta be very aware of when you're creating containers is what's like when you're generally speaking, working in the skin, you got this viewer area where you can work and click and things like like this. But you also have this hierarchy on the right. So main viewer, container, and always be very conscious of where you're clicking. That's very important. So when I click here, you can see that I've got the main viewer selected right now. When I click here, I've got the container selected by looking at this blue line. So look at what you've got selected, because a lot of times you will have something selected where you click on and you think you got the container, but actually it's the container above, something like that. Anyway, let's get on to this. So we are going to see what's going to happen in the properties when we are resizing this. So as you can see, the size is changing here and the positions are changing because they're all dependent of each other. What we want to do is we want to just create this on the left side and let's move it like this. So something like, this feels good. But now I am going to set the percentage. So I'm going to set 20%. Why am I doing this? Because I want to be very conscious of the sizes that I'm taking. So I don't just want to do a bit like this and a bit like this and a bit like, like it's just not very design technical smart. I don't know how to name that. So anyway, we got this now. Now we are going to rename this container. So I always use this technique where I everything with a container, I start with a backslash. And then I put everything into capitals. So I'm going to call this menu. And I'm doing this everything with capitals. Everything else I'm doing, so viewer, floor plan, web frames, all these others, I all do with small letters. So let's say I would add a button to here. Then I would call this, something like button. This is already my preset. And then I give this a name. So that for the basics. Now we've got this container. We've set the percentage to 20%. Now we might want to give this a color. So we can go to edit styles when we have the container selected. And here you can change this. Now there are already by default, there's two things selected, this one and this one. And these are basically gradients. So when I change one of them, you can see there's this gradient. If I don't want a gradient, make sure that there's one color thing selected. To remove one of these color things, I'm going to right click on it. So it's gone. And I can left click and I can just add another one and another one and another one. So, well, that's kind of like how it works. So I'm going to set the opacity all the way to 0, like 1, I mean. Now, I've got this. Let's see. So we got a container now. Now, there is, So let's create another container in this. And in this container, we are going to centralize this within the menu. So, and this is going to be like the first set of options you're going to see within this menu. So I do // and I do 2 now because this is the second layer of the hierarchy. That's how to keep things a bit organized. So, and I'm going to call this first menu. I don't know if it makes sense. I think so. Maybe, yeah. And in the first menu, I'm going to see, okay, you know what? I want this to be 50%. So that this is 50% of this container. And I could move it there like this. But you can see, if I want this to be like exactly to the top here, I have to set this to 0%. But I want it to be in the center, so I'm going to do that differently. I'm going to say top 0%, bottom 0%. Now, this subcontainer is going to be taking everything in there, and it will always be in the center because both the top and the bottom are selected. If I unselect one of them, it's still 100%. But if I do 90%, it will always do the 90% based on the, how do you say? Of the top, yeah. So let's make this 0, 0. Now, maybe I want to have a little bit more spacing. So I'm going to say, well, I want it to be 20% from the top and 20% from the bottom. Now, it is always centered in this container, and it has a little bit spacing from the top and from the bottom. So I got my first menu. Now I need to add a set of buttons. So 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to buttons. I'm going to use one of my default buttons. I've created a tutorial on how to do the buttons better and stuff. I see that I set the font to white and white on white. You don't see anything. Now you do. Let's check these rollovers. Yes, also white, and this is also white. So button 1. I'm also going to call this button 1. Now I'm going to duplicate it. Control C, Control V, command. And I'm going to do that in 3 times, like 2 duplicates. Now I've duplicated, but you don't see anything changing here. So that is because they're all exactly in the same position. So when I move it a little bit, you can see, hey, there they are. So, but now I want everything within these buttons that are within the first menu. I want it to be like centered vertically, so like this, and I want it to be centered horizontally. So to do that, I could, of course, I could do like something like this, you know, and it's kind of like this, but this is never accurate, so it's not a good option. So I can go to the first menu and change the layout from absolute to vertical. So now, if I would duplicate it, it will all be vertically aligned. So that's nice. Control Z, Command Z to go back. So here we are. Now we still need to change this button 2, button 3. There we go. But still, it's not aligned to the vertical and horizontal axis. So to do that, we can go to this first menu and say horizontal align, center, vertical align, middle. There we go. Now we might say, well, it's nice, but you know, I want a bit more spacing between these buttons. Okay, we can do that as well. So the gap, we can just, by default, is always set to 10. Usually, for some reason, I set it to 0 with my designs, but you know, it's something to pay attention to. But if I want more spacing, I can do it like this. So there we go. So now I've created these 3 buttons, and that's nice. But now I want to show a submenu when I'm going to click on button 1. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate first menu. So Control C, Control V. I'm going to hide the first one so that we have that as a backup. And I'm going to change the second one and call this second menu, or submenu 1. So maybe I should call this main menu. Yeah. I could call the main menu 0, as it's like always showing on the start. Makes sense, I think. So submenu 1. So I'm going to change the names 2, 1, 1. And this is going to be 1, 2. And this is going to be 1, 3 to keep things organized. And edit styles, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So now I've got my first main menu and my first submenu. And obviously I can add all these actions like, oh, I got default actions there. That's not nice for the tutorial. By default, they're not there. So anyway, you can just add an action and open panorama or something like that, whatever you want. You can do that yourself. I'm just going to explain you how to set up the structure for your main menu and skin. So right now we got the submenu and the main menu. But you know, if I'm going to preview this, you'll not be seeing anything else, you know, when you are going to click on button 1. Like, yeah, nice, but yeah, there's no point in that. So we have to add an action to this. I'm going to remove these actions. Yes, so on button 1, I'm going to add an action and say show hide components. And I'm going to say on click, I want to go into the menu, and the main menu should be hidden and the submenu should be showing. I can do that all with one action, the toggle show hide. And this is a little bit tricky, this part, because show hide and the toggle show hide, it gets a little puzzle. Like when things are getting more and more complex, you might have like one button where you could use a toggle, but on the other you should have a show specifically and a hide specifically. So, but let's play around with it and see how it goes. So right now I want submenu 1 to be hidden when you click on it. No. I want main menu to be hidden and submenu to be showing. And I'm going to use a toggle for this. I don't want any transitions, so I'm going to turn off the effects. I'm going to do it like this. And let's see. So, button 1. And there we go. So, now this is working, and that's nice. Let's say, you know, you're working in your project, and you keep this on, and you're like, oh yeah, let's preview it. And hey, what's happening? Or you click on these things, it's not set right. So you have to set everything correctly from the beginning. That's very important. So I have to make this invisible by default and be very conscious when I'm going to preview it that everything's checked correctly. Now, there's a little trick to set the default parameters independent of how you've got them here. So what I mean by that is that I can do this and preview it and still show the menu. So if you do it now, you don't see anything. But to make it show all by default, independent of how you're working, is to set the actions in the main viewer. So I can go to main viewer, show hide components, and I can say, well, on initialization of the main viewer, I can show, let's turn off the effects. I can show the menu with the main menu, something like this. And I add another action, show hide components. And now I say on initialization, hide, turn off this, the submenu 1. So now, even though everything's turned off, it's still showing. And it's all showing perfectly nice. So even if I turn this all on, for example, it's messed up like this. This is not supposed how it should go. It is still showing nicely. So with this little trick in the main viewer, you can set everything always perfectly nice. So, you know, it's just to save yourself a little headache. I think that's it for now. Let's see, we got the main menu. we got the submenu. Well, basically you can do the same submenu. You copy, paste it, make it 2, and go to button 2, add action, show height components, toggle show height, and then say submenu 2. And there you go. And the same for 3, etc. So let's see. Oh, it's not working. So what am I doing wrong here? Oh, it's the main menu, and it should be this main menu 0. So button 2, and it's showing. Now I will probably add something like a go back button and stuff like that to make it a bit more advanced. But you know, this is kind of like how you can start designing your own main menu with your own hierarchy, subcategories, and to understand a little bit more of how the skin is working in 3DVista. I hope this tutorial helped you a lot. If it did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, of course. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.